Successful companies are successful in their platform and they are successful in their sales. You have to be open to listen. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to be challenged by those customers as fast as possible. That way you can find product market fit through selling.
Welcome to Tech's Startup Elevator. I am excited here to welcome Ben, who is a serial founder, investor, and Immigrant founder. And I know many of you guys have the dream of coming and conquering US or are on the path of doing that. So this interview will be packed with practical advice, how to persevere, how to succeed. And Ben built a great business, exited that business, and now supporting others as well as starting other ventures of his own. Welcome, Ben, to the show. So excited to see you here.
Yes, thank you for having me. And if people are guessing where I'm coming from, my accent will speak for me. So I'm from France and moved to the US 6 years ago.
Amazing, Ben. And we are lucky to have this amazing group, post-exit founders, where I got to meet Ben and was just fascinated by his story. I think I've met a lot of immigrant founders who came to US, did something like myself, maybe build a corporate career, and then sort of moved into starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur. But Ben has a different story. He was an entrepreneur back in France, and then he at some point realized, right? So what I wanted to unpack, Ben, is just maybe kind of early days of your business back in France and sort of how you were thinking, what were the roadblocks? Why did you decide to leap over the ocean and get here?
I've been in tech for 15 years. In fact, I started my career in South Korea for a year. That's how I really decided to focus on technologies back then, because in 2008 was pre-iPhone, like pre-4Gs and all that, but they already have so much technologies going on, like the opportunity were really like eyes opening. So I came back to France, worked 4 years in a corporate company called Vivendi, which is a big like media technology holding companies, and then decided to start my company basically the same month I got my first daughter. So it's really like a professional and personal journey as well. And I'm stressing that out because when we're going to speak about like going to the US, I think the personal side of things are also an impact on the choice and the willingness to do the jump. So I started my company called SimpliField. SimpliField was enterprise SaaS retail software for retailers to help them manage their stores at distance. So as like working in France, we obviously focused on luxury and cosmetic company at first. So we had customer like Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, LVMH, Hermes, L'Oréal, guys like this, like big French name over there. But the key aspect, like we developed the business quite well in France. We did like a seed round there. And like most of the customers in France, they were saying like, hey, like Europe is really like a localized market. So every market is different. It's really hard to do all over Europe from one country. Usually you will see companies like doing, hey, I have an office in France and then I open an office in like Germany. And then because it's a different culture, it's a different language, it's a different like go-to-market strategy. And then I reopen something in Italy, total different strategy, messaging, positioning as well. Spain, each time is a different area. And the difficulty we had back then, like serving those customers, is being like a French company with French people in France, where it was really difficult for us to support correctly like international expansion. And when you work for LVMH, for example, or when you work for Nespresso's or guys like this, like they don't have stores in one country. They don't have people working in one language. They don't have one culture. So at some point you need to access to market that have like let's say a global resonance. And in my space, in SaaS, especially in retail, New York was kind of the play for us. Like I have to say, like if you look at 57th Street and Madison, basically like 60 or 70% of the market is at headquarters over there. So it was kind of like obvious for us that we had to do that play. Now, when you look in the media, what you see all the time is like, hey, like those guys, they raised like 20 million to do the US market. And those guys, they raised like 40 million to do the US market. But in fact, like the US market is not that expensive and you don't need to like raise that much money to even think about it. And usually when they like those people raise money, they already have a presence in the US and already have metrics, because you don't raise money to do a market. You raise money because you have traction on the market.
This is a golden insight, Ben. And I can't tell you now, coaching startup founders, I can't tell you how many folks come to me saying, well, we want to raise to get into US market. So I want this insight to sink in and register with everyone. If you're an immigrant founder, you raise money when you have traction. It doesn't have to be a lot of traction, but it has to be real proof points with increasing traction in a market.
Yeah, like investors, they always invest on metrics and not on inch, not on like willingness. Even though like as an entrepreneur, we have all like a strong belief in our capacity to break through, achieve amazing result, and we kind of like always look up on what we can achieve and how we can get there, and the path seems always clear. If we put ourselves in the shoes of investors, like they're gonna invest on like, hey, if this guy invested like X amount of money on a market and is able to do X amount of revenue, if I give him more money, then I can maybe achieve more sales and grow even faster.
You can project from the success that you're already seeing. And Ben, just to go all the way back, right? So we will, of course, spend a lot of time talking about US transition and why, but just going back to your early days, right? The kind of early customers that you were able to get in France and is no small order, right? This sort of huge brand name customers. How did you do it?
A couple of things. First of all, we were lucky to have like the opening of the startup market in France back in 2014. So it was really like a moment where big companies were looking to, like start like POCs and incubators and innovate. It was something that was trendy. So we had like a lot of like innovation people in those big groups that were looking for like a solution. And what we decided to do is do something that no one wanted to take care of, like something that is really like boring and tedious. But the fact that it's boring, time consuming, and a pain for those big groups resonate a lot with the decision maker within those groups, because they say, oh, it's such like managing stores, playing with Excel files, sorting pictures, trying to know what's where and all that without going into too much detail. It was really like a tedious, difficult process that was like costing a lot of money. The play we had was to go through the innovation division at first. We got the first POCs. We successfully served those POCs. So then we said like, okay, if we are successful in one category, let's say leather goods, with one POC, we're going to make a use case. We're going to build the ROI case with them, and we're going to see all their competitors and just like speak about the story. And this fact, we're able to say, hey, those guys are working with us. Why are you not? And we can go up like this. So that was the first step. The second step is, I'm a sales founder. So I love selling. I build companies around, pain point, sales cycle, sales motion. Technology is like part of it, but it's not like we're not doing like, I'm not a tech founder that is doing breakthrough in technology. I'm more like, what is the pain? How can we fix that? And to get into those big companies, when you're sales founders, you have the luxury of being able to have conversation with like C-level who want to see founder and entrepreneur and who raise a bit of money. So you can speak about the pain point for C-level, but you can also speak to the pain point for end users. And when you're able to really like achieve those two conversations, it's really easier to get into those big groups, because when they speak internally, it becomes obvious for everyone that the solution is required going forward.
Absolutely. And what was the first? So if I understood correctly, just to summarize, Ben, you started having access to those customers through a lot of sort of innovation ecosystem that started to boom at the time when you were getting started. Innovation labs, accelerators, and
Yeah, we did it all. Like, to be honest, like every time a company was opening like a competition, like they are like a pitch, like we really like hustle like to get into those accounts. We started with small POCs, 20K, 25K contracts. We disguised the services in IRR just to, grow like the revenue as well, there, and can renew, easily the contract. We really try to at first like reach everyone and anyone, and then when we got one, we start to say, okay, like cosmetics is booming for us, we're just going to do cosmetics. Luxury is booming for us, we're just going to do luxury. And that way we just build up our approach. That was the early beginning. When we had the first like 3 to 5 reference, what we did was really more traditional. So I'm really like seasoned in that direct sales model. That's something I know well. You can do PLG if you want to, but like I'm more like a direct sales person. So we did like outbound, qualification, AEs, thought leadership, events, the traditional like B2B enterprise SaaS model. We was in the first one to do it in France in 2014, 2015. So also like we had a lot of success with like great meetings, opening rates, and all that, and give us great visibility. So that's how also we were able to grow.
that's amazing. And being the sales founder, right? At the end of the day, right? I think in a tech startup, there are only two things that matter, right? There is the product, and then there is kind of sales. And typically, you can, I think a lot of folks come and say, well, if I have amazing product, they will come, right? We know that that's just not how it works. You can actually be quite successful with a so-so product if your go-to-market is really amazing. But so one without the other long-term, right, doesn't deliver results. And so
like successful companies are successful in their platform and they are successful in their sales. Sometimes you start with having like a lot of sales, then you're going to have maybe a high churn rate, but you have a lot of feedback on your platform. You're going to improve your platform based on customer feedback. You're going to iterate super fast. You have to be open to listen. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to be challenged by those customers as fast as possible. And that way you can find product market fit through selling. You shouldn't oversell, but sometimes scalability, sometimes, like reliability of the platform can be of issue. And on the other end, you can have an amazing product and have but I will say more with a product-led growth approach where the product is doing the sales for you. I think it's something that can work. The sales thing is going to push you to go because the cost of sales is also something you have to take into account. So the sales model, like direct sales model, will push you to go to higher annual contract value. By essence, you can't sell like a $1,000 a year contract for direct sales. You need to get to like, let's say minimum of like 25-ish, I'd say, for inside sales, at distance. If you have like field sales, it's even higher. But when you have a product, you can totally go like a bottom up approach with like entering the accounts through like free trials or like pay, like prosumer type of pricing model. And then if you have multiple users within one company, target the company and then build the contract. So the two approaches can work. You don't start from the same point, but you converge on the same successful criteria.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, because sales is so critical, I can't not ask you, what is your best tip about sort of those early direct sales? It sounds like you close the sales yourself, or you're also generating leads yourself. Sort of, let's kind of dive into a bit of the know-how.
Sure. So if we stay on a direct sales model context with, let's say, accounts that are billing like 50K to 150K a year, that type of sales with multiple users, you're going to have a complex sales cycle. You're going to have probably a 3 months, 4 months sales cycle. You're going to have to speak to multiple stakeholders. I think the best thing you can do, and I think it's something that is undervalued a lot in sales process. I think like hiring a super solid pre-sales that have like technical understanding of the account, be able to also reassure the prospect on the deployment process, integration process, all the complexity that can be blocker during the sales process. I think a super solid pre-sales is almost doing the sale, like 80% of the sale by itself. Because it's reassuring. It's also like give your small company the look of a bigger company. So it's reassuring also on the size of the company. So I always say like go with a sales and a pre-sales. Pre-sales can be someone who is a bit technical. I mean, you have to understand like API, SSOs, like database, dump, stuff like this. Easy. It's not, you shouldn't be like a PhD either. But good listening, be able to reassure, and something we like to do early days. We couldn't afford to have pre-sales and post-sales team. So the pre-sale was also doing the post-sales, bringing also a sense of continuity for the customers between the moment he engaged the conversation to the moment he's like successful with the platform. So I think the pre-sale is something I really like push companies I'm seeing coming in, especially for immigrants and people like working in Europe. I feel like in the US, the pre-sales role is something that is really more seasoned. Like Salesforce have been doing that for like 25 years already. So it's something that is really like now a usual things to see. It's not something I always see on the European side. And I think it's really critical from a business standpoint.
That is a great insight. And it's interesting because I've spent, 8 years as part of EMC and Dell, and certainly have seen, they call it pods, right? Sales pods at scale, right? When you have pre-sales, sales. And it is really interesting and insightful to see how you do it early days as a company, but also pre-sale has the dual role of customer success and pre-sale. And that also ensures that whatever you promise, because some salespeople obviously have the tendency of promising the world, and then you're, as they say, satisfaction, right, is the difference between expectations and reality. And so you obviously want to retain those clients. And so that is a great insight, Ben. Thank you. If we go back to sort of what was the moment or that you realized you will have to go to US?
Yeah. I mean, as I was speaking about like a bit earlier, like when you have accounts that are like big accounts, usually they don't operate in a single market. So you need to get to like a global market. So the only global market back then for us in Europe was London. And if it was not London, it was New York. So the usual choice for many French startups is to try to open UK as a next step. But UK was as much expensive as New York, to be honest. And the market in the US opened up so much more opportunities. And not just from a sales standpoint, but also like as a founder, because if you look at it in terms of what's the equity story you want to tell on the project, if you want to look at in B2B SaaS, like 75% of the acquisition of companies are made by like East Coast companies, basically. So if you want to maximize the chance for you to sell your business, being present in the US multiply by tenfold your chance of being acquired. I'm not saying it's not possible to do it in Europe, obviously. I'm just saying like your chance is way bigger because a lot of the acquirers are in the US market. So we did like so France, the French state is really pushing French entrepreneurs to go abroad. So I did a program with them of 10 weeks called Impact in 2018. They give you like a SDR, basically, who is doing prospection for you. They help you like structure your pitch, meet as many prospects as you can in 10 weeks, and create like pipeline to give you a conviction on your ability to sell or not the platform. So I did this program. it went super well. I have to be honest. And we had like so many traction just because like the product was so useful in the US. The SimpliField is a product to help you manage stores at distance. So the more stores you have, the broader the stores, the more ROI you get from the platform. So the US market, geographically speaking, is already a huge opportunity. So what we find out in the first, so I came there, I do those 10 weeks, I got that pipeline, I called my wife, I had 2 kids back then. And I said, look, 2 things like entrepreneurs who are already in the US told me. When you have like a bit of traction in the US, you have to take it or leave it, but it will not come back. You have your moment. Or you go, or you don't. It's both choice can be thoughtful and with good ideas behind it. But if you want to go, if you have traction and you have like pipeline conversation, and you see that your product is sparking some interest, you need to go now, because if not, someone else will take that opportunities. The second thing is like in Europe, I have like 1 competitors. In the US, I have 12 competitors. Okay. So 12 competitors that are always located in the US, with founder in the US, with VCs in the US. So flying business, and that's the second thing, the flying business of like, hey, I'm going to come to New York 1 week per month. No, it just doesn't make it, because they want to see a company that is devoted and focused to their market. If you are not, they don't take it badly, but what they're going to say is like, look, I have 12 other competitors of yours in the US. I just have to choose. They are there. Their support team is there. They know our culture. They already have experience. So the flying business is also something that is not an answer.
And Ben, sorry to interrupt you. This is something I'm wrestling with, and as I work with entrepreneurs, because on the one hand, seems like it's all virtual, right? It's not that you necessarily went to see customers. It is a software business, which doesn't require installation team on site, I imagine, right? It's probably haven't met in person many of your customers. Is that true in the US?
For me, it was a bit different because, as I mentioned, most of the customer in New York, and I did the prospection, so a lot of like retail event, like the NRF or breakfast or lunch, but it was pre-COVID though. So I will say that now it's also something that probably has changed. Though even though now you are doing the calls in Zoom or you are not meeting them in person, they can feel that you are not on the US market right away on the call. Where are you located? Do you have kids? Where are they going to schools? You know, like the chit chat.
Talking like a real salesperson.
Yeah. No, but I mean, the chit chat at the beginning is not chit chat. It's a qualification question. So you need to be able to understand what they are looking for and give them that. And when you are like in a flying business, you can fake it for a couple of times. I will adjust that. Like if you are selling to startups, if you are like a startup selling to startup, I think you can do flying business. You can sell from everywhere and you don't need to be there in person. You can come whenever you want. If you sell to more traditional enterprise businesses, like retail stores, hospitality market, professional services market, like CPGs, guys like this, you need to be in the US. And, like it's for me, it's about what they look for, but it's also for you to be immersed in the culture and the business way of things, in such a way as a founder that you can make your own company evolve, your marketing evolve, your positioning evolve, your pricing evolve as fast as needed to get honestly, the US is like finding a new product market fit. It's a new market, more experience, more season, more competition. So you have to reposition yourself as well. So that's why I'm saying this, that you need, like, even though you can do the phone call at distance, I still feel like being on the market is a huge advantage.
Going back to what you just said, which I think is so important, right? Finding new product market fit. So how did you start marketing the same product with all of its feature set in US, or you tried to find kind of your Trojan horse with some pared down features, or had to develop a different version of a product? So how did you go about finding that product market fit? And yeah.
So basically, like we came in the US with already like known customers. So as I mentioned, we have like huge brands in Europe that are well known in the US. We decided to pick one vertical within our customers, which was cosmetics, and just do cosmetics because it was, and we have to rework all our pitch, all our presentation, all our pricing model. Technically speaking, it was the same product. We didn't have to make huge change. We just have to invest a bit in scalability, invest a bit in like the SLAs to be able to answer customer expectation there. But like from a product standpoint, it was really like a similar use case. Where we had to invest a lot was mainly on like, you don't tell the same story, you don't calculate the ROI the same way, you don't, you don't build your proposal the same way. You don't speak to the same level of people as well. And you, in the US, you are a vendor, you are not a startup. So when you are a vendor, like it's really more like, let's say, cold discussion, that the excitement of the French entrepreneur speaking to French company that want to help, at the beginning. In the US, you just are a vendor. And it's good that they look at you as a vendor because it's also said that you can price and charge as a vendor as well. But it's a different type of conversation you're going to get. So most of the change and the iteration we have to do was really on like the marketing of the product. And when I say marketing, I say like demand gen and product marketing, the sales material, the sales pricing, the steps in the flows to be able to really like achieve those sales quickly.
Ben, did you hire a dedicated team in the US and had someone who was continuing to manage the European or French business specifically? How did you navigate it? Obviously, you sort of had to take what was your full-time job and then add another full-time job on managing US expansion. How did that work?
Yeah, it's a really good call out. So one of the things you have to do before going to the US is be sure that when you leave your main or original country, you don't want your business to be left over, because it's kind of like the cash cow of your companies where the most revenue is. And the US, you are not going to do like, the same amount of revenue within like a month. It takes time. So you have to hire I hired sales directors in France that I train that to cover the team. So I know that I had someone who can really like manage the execution of our sales motion in Europe. I also have we were 3 co-founders, so I have 2 co-founders who stayed in France, even though they are more on the product and tech side. They still have the founder role of like, especially for the company culture, that was really important. So when I arrived in the US, first things I did is to hire like a operation pre-sales guy, as I mentioned, because that was the feedback everyone gave me. And startup who succeeded in the US, they were like the first hire. And then 2 SDRs. You have to hire 2 SDRs because churn rate is super high. Some are not performing, and you don't want to have to be in hiring mode all the time. So you hire 2, often you're going to keep 1, then you hire 2, then you're going to keep 1.
That's my rule as well. Always hire in pairs.
So you need, especially like when you come from France where there's less rotation, let's say turnover in the team, people stay way longer. You have like different employment market laws. In the US is like employment at will. So I got A's, like sometimes they came and after a week they say, I don't mind, or I'm gonna shift and all that, or it's a bit complex for me, or it's I don't feel good about this one. So it happened, but you don't want to be stuck in a hiring inferno of like trying to hire people all the time, because it just deviates you from the main goal. So hire 2 SDRs, 1 operational pre-sales partner guy, like kind of a senior guy who's going to help you like be a Swift knife, like he's going to do pre-sales, CS, It's going to help you with people. It's going to help you restructure a bit the company because as a founder, you're going to be in front of customers, in front of prospects, hiring people, speaking to VC, speaking to, like a conference, being all over the place as well. So I suggest that the three people are the three main ones, two SDRs, one pre-sales. And then when you start having like 3 or 4 customers and your playbook start to look like a sales playbook, you can start thinking about hiring AEs, but don't hire AEs until the playbook and all the sales material and the case study and the ROI is ready. Because in the US, like someone told me one day, I'm going to steal his example. Like in Europe, what you see is like, it's like the soccer team with 11 players that can play kind of all around the place. And in the US is a NFL team where you have like 54 players and they do one thing, but they are amazing at it. So you have to think about like the US team that way. You have SDRs. You need to prep everything for them to be ready to be excellent SDRs. So meaning email sequence, email list, tooling, CRM, the whole thing has to be ready to go when they arrive. They just have to click on a button and boom, execute. AEs is the same thing. They do sell really well. They're not going to do pre-sales. They're not going to do CS. They're not going to build the playbook. They're not going to create the presentation for you. You have to give them the whole set of tools for them to shine. But like when they do, the quality and the volume they can handle, the quality and the speed of execution is really like super good in the US, especially in SaaS, because in SaaS you have so much, like 25 years of industry experience now. So you have like seasoned people with like more and more experience. So that's also something that is really good.
That's excellent advice. And I think so many founders who are immigrant founders, they come here and say, oh my God, I'm going to get this big wig salesperson with huge Rolodex that is so shiny and they're going to go and solve this market for them. And this is just the biggest mistake one can make, right? It seems like an easier way to enter, but this is really, I don't know anyone for whom it actually works. I think it's really, really hard because you know your product, you know the pain points, and willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. And if you go that way, what I suggest is really focus on individual contributors who already have done the job, because you can't build your sales playbook, build the material, but also train them. And when you do the hiring process, to all immigrant founders, be aware that US trained employees are the best in interviews, the best. They just know how to handle interviews like it's a family dinner. So the thing you have to do is really like be able to make them do like case study in front of you live. So for example, if you are hiring AEs, ask him to do give him a case, ask him to do like a first meeting presentation for you on the platform so you can see how he presents, how he thinks, how he asks questions, how he's following up, those things live. If you are interviewing SDRs, ask him to do like a phone calls to you and call like 3 employees within the company and try to get a meeting with them to see how he handled the phone, like how his voice is, ask him to send you like a couple of emails. You will see that it looks like a ChatGPT type, or if it's really like him doing some work in personalizing the quality of email. And even though today's we have amazing tools like Apollo.io or others like this that can like super help on things, you still need to get amazing people to deal with those tools and deliver. So I'm urging people to really like spend time on their hiring process and don't take everything for granted, especially the reference call. Reference call as a favor, like people are doing here. It's a national sport. I'm like, people can give reference call to anyone for anything. They just don't mind because they just want to have the favor back when they need it. So the only way to really like be sure that the people will be as good as possible from a skill perspective, it's really like the live use case, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's really great. I've certainly find that hiring salespeople is the toughest job, because if they cannot sell themselves, they're really bad. But many of them will stop at selling themselves and not selling your product, right? That's the challenge. And you mentioned a lot of tools, and it's funny that you mentioned the Apollo.io. It's also the tool that we've actually built our whole outbound strategy on at ClassTag. Did you operate those tools yourself and you just got to US, or you hired someone to help you scale from the get-go, or you tested?
Honestly, tools are simple, like HubSpot CRM. I'm not speaking about marketing automation and complex like lead qualification process, but like Apollo.io, Outreach, Aircall, HubSpot, and so on. Like there's many tools you can use, even to enrich the data, are super easy to use. I was a Salesforce user back then, so it was a bit more complex, but still, like I manage and operate the tool at first. And when you have like 10 to 15 customers, you have revenue and you have your sales playbook working and you are starting to get data, at that moment, you can think about having like a sales ops coming in and like starting to look at the process and the flows and the tool and giving like proper dashboards. But I think within the first years and below $1 million in revenue in the US, I think it's a waste of money at that stage and a waste of focus. I've seen people being successful, like starting with only Pipedrive, like just like super manual, step by step or API based type of things. It's helpful. I think for like Apollo is a great tool for outreach, for example. I think it's probably the best on the market right now, and I have no investment in it. I'm just saying that like nicely. But there is other tools as well that are like helping depending on your industry and who you want to reach out to. But I mean, you shouldn't spend like money. Like the money is of essence. The efficiency from a cash perspective is that.
Yeah, this is great. And it's funny that, a lot of the tools you're mentioning, I'm also in my toolkit and something I recommend founders to use. And it just, it really changes the game, and you need to build that playbook because there's no one else who's going to spend 12 hours experimenting with your first email sequences or your playbooks. And so that's only the founder grit that can get you there. And Ben, I know we are sort of approaching the wrap up. It's been phenomenal, packed with really practical insights. So thank you very much for that. I know you're working on a new company. I don't know if there is something that's helpful for you to share with some folks listening. And of course, where to find you.
So we are still in stealth mode. I don't want to give away too much too early, but I'm working in like enterprise SaaS, AI-based software. So for people who knows me, who are listening this podcast, I don't think it's going to be a surprise, given like the new generation of tools out there and the experience I have in that. So I hope like I will be able to share a bit more like during the summer about this new company.
That's very exciting, Ben. And are you active on some channels? Twitter?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if you want to connect with me or discuss or need help or advice, you can or reach out to Vlada. If you want an intro, I'll be happy to spend time or directly with me on Twitter and LinkedIn.
Amazing. And so great to hear and learn from you, Ben, today. Your French accent is lovely and so were your insights. So thank you for your openness and sharing. Thank you.
My pleasure.